So this is a code walkthrough series. So till we don't get into the code, I think it's going to give some anxiety to a lot of people. So how is the part which talks about what do we write, what do we configure, what do we code? Okay, so that's what we're getting into right now. Before getting into code, but however, since as I said, the objective of this session is to get the concepts clear. A pictorial representation on how Hibernate works would be something like this, where you have a relational database, you have tables in your database. What you generally do is also create corresponding Java objects. So if you have a client table, you create a class, client class, and have attributes which correspond to your database table columns. Hibernate sits in between your relational database and your Java objects, providing the mapping features, providing database connectivity, concurrency, and all those features which we spoke about. And how does Hibernate do this? Obviously, it does it with the help of configuration files which you provide to Hibernate. Right, so this would be a pictorial representation, a very high level view of how Hibernate works. And now we'll get into details of each of these parts now. Okay. So let's take a very simple example. Let's say this is our table definition, and we have a client table which has a client ID, which is an auto increment. No relationships, just a single entity with client ID as a primary key. And since I'm using MySQL allows me to define an auto increment column. So whenever I insert a row, it automatically assigns a value to the client ID. Okay. I hope I'm audible because I'm getting a warning here.
No, you're audible.
Any of the organizers, can you respond? Am I audible?
Yeah, please, you're audible.
Okay, yeah, because I suddenly got a warning here saying you might be experiencing network connection. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we have a table, we have a Java class called client, and we have corresponding attributes which correspond to the columns in the database: client ID, name, age, and date of birth. So now to get Hibernate working, what information would we need to provide to Hibernate so that it's able to execute? Supposedly what we've heard about Hibernate is it magically generates. We don't have to write any SQL queries. So if you think, if Hibernate needs to generate SQL, what do you think you need to provide to Hibernate? Obviously, the first thing you need to tell Hibernate is something about your database. At least which database you're using, what's the IP address on which your database server is running, the port, the username, password, the details which Hibernate would require to at least connect to your database. Will be the first thing you need to tell Hibernate. Next, you would have to tell Hibernate about the tables and the columns which are there in the table, and information on which column in the table maps to which attributes of the Java object which you've created. Right. So by providing try and connect to the database, figure out what queries to execute, and also have population of POJOs from database and a population of all the information he's going to need. So the configuration files of Hibernate is the configuration file which is required for the database connectivity, which is general XML.
Sorry for interrupting. There seems to be
configuration file.
Hello.
Like this.
There seems to be some problems in voice. It's breaking.
So I have taken a these which are required for closing a couple of hello. Yeah. Okay. Is the screen visible? Okay. 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 And or I don't know how many slides I need to. Should I just go through this slide again?
Yeah, that would help.
So what we were talking about is yeah. Keshav, I'm okay now.
No, it's still breaking.
Yeah. Is my voice clear now? No issues now? Hello? Shall I disconnect and reconnect just again? I can join back, right? If I just disconnect my, I'll just disconnect and reconnect back. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Hi. Just to check, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible now. It's better. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for the short interruption. Okay, so we were on the slide where we were looking at how Hibernate works when you provide the certain configuration files to Hibernate. So there are two types of configuration files which Hibernate requires. One of them is the file which provides information about your database, and the other are a set of files which would provide information about the mappings between your table columns and your Java classes. So what you can see on your screen now is the Hibernate configuration file. This is the file where you specify your JDBC driver class, which obviously needs to be part of your class path. Your database password, your database connection URL, username, Dialect basically means what database you're using. So I'm using MySQL for the example. So the dialect is MySQL. The dialect basically tells Hibernate to use a particular, that you're using a particular database. So what it can do is it can optimize the queries which are generated to suit that database. There is a property called hibernate.showSQL. This is mostly for debug purposes, where when you set this to true, Hibernate logs all the SQL statements which it's executing. So you can have a look at the SQLs which are getting generated. This is mostly for debug purposes, and if you'd like to tune any queries as such. The last property called current session context class. Now this is one property which needs some explanation. Right now I'll just give a very short description. This is basically, this tells Hibernate as to which level you want to cache your Hibernate session. Okay, we'll come to this. You might not understand it at this moment of time, but we'll come back to this when we are doing our code walkthrough. Okay, so I'll come back to this property. After that, you have an entry called mapping. So like I said, there are two types of configuration files: Hibernate configuration, which talks about the database properties, and the others which talk about mappings. So since I have only one entity in the example called client, I've created one mapping file, and all the list of, so Hibernate allows you to have different mapping files per entity so that you can logically break down your configuration files. So if I have one entity, I have one mapping file with me right now, and generally it's named as the name of the entity .hbm for Hibernate mapping.xml. So this is about the hibernate.cfg.xml file, and then the next snippet which is coming up on your screen is the mapping file. So let's go through what the mapping file tells Hibernate. If you see, the crux here is you're specifying a class name, a fully qualified class name. That is the name of your POJO, or the class which you created, which holds attributes corresponding to your database table. Here you have mentioned which table this particular class corresponds to. So here we have table equal to client, and catalog is the name of your schema in the database. Okay, there's a question here from Shubham. If the application is small and say only 2 pages with CRUD operations, then whether you should go for Hibernate or you should go for plain JDBC. Okay, if you're very conversant with Hibernate and you have your hands dirty in Hibernate, you will find that it is very, very fast to put up a 2-page CRUD application if you use Hibernate. Because you don't have to write any SQL statements, and CRUD, when we come to the code snippets, you will see that CRUD operations are just 1-line codes in Hibernate. So I think if you're writing small applications, in terms of speed of development, I think you should be able to use Hibernate and speeden up your coding time. And so I'm sure that once you come to the slides where I'm showing you snippets of code, it'll automatically get clear as to whether you can use Hibernate or it's beneficial to use Hibernate for smaller applications or not. But yeah, if you want to get a application out very fast and you don't know Hibernate and you're just starting with Hibernate, then it might not be worth the learning curve, because it's just a 2-page application with CRUD, and you can just write some database.jdbc queries and get over with it. Okay, so back to the mapping file. We've specified what we're telling Hibernate here, that okay, I have a class called client, and this class corresponds to my client table, Now within the class, I list out all the attributes. What I'm trying to do here is map the attributes of my Java class to the columns of my database table. So here I've specified, so there is a special property called ID, which tells Hibernate that this is the primary key of the table. Okay, so I've said, okay, my primary key is the column called client ID, and it's of an integer type. And there is a class called there is a tag called generator. Now, when you talk about primary keys, okay, there are lots of different logic or different ways in which you can generate primary keys. Like I already showed in our case, MySQL allows you to have an auto increment column. In fact, Microsoft SQL Server also allows you to have an auto increment column. Oracle doesn't have an auto increment column. So you might want to leave it to the database to generate your primary key. You might want to have your own algorithm to generate the primary key, or you might want to use standard algorithms like high-low generators, etc. So Hibernate gives you a full flexibility of using your any sort of ID generator which you like. You can plug in your own ID generator if you like. In this example, what we've done is we've used the database auto increment column. So what we're telling Hibernate here is that this identity is a keyword provided by Hibernate. When you say generator class is identity, we're telling Hibernate that you can just leave the creation of the primary key to the database. So in statements like inserts, Hibernate would not generate a primary key. It would leave it to the database to generate the primary key. So that's what we're telling Hibernate here. Yes, how can we define if primary key is a composite key is a question which has been asked. Like within the ID tags, the XSD of the mapping file, if you go through the entire XSD of the mapping file, here if you see we have only one column defined within the ID tags. You can actually have multiple columns which you can define. You can actually define a separate key class, like you have a client Pojo. You can have a client key Pojo which contains attributes which would form your composite primary key. So Hibernate supports composite primary keys also, though I have not taken them as examples in this session because didn't want the session to get too heavy and didn't want to digress from just simple concepts of Hibernate. But yes, composite keys are supported by Hibernate, just to answer your question. Difference between dialect and driver, well, they're two different things altogether. Driver is the class which you would like to use, so Hibernate actually doesn't come with drivers installed. So when you say dialect, you might say the dialect is MySQL, but that doesn't mean that Hibernate ships with the MySQL JDBC drivers also. That is something which you have to externally specify. So that's the reason there are two different properties altogether. Is Hibernate thread safe? We will come to that, Robinson, when we reach the part on session management. So this is a very basic. We talked about the ID column in the mapping file, and similarly we have properties called name which map to the column called name, which is of type string. We have age corresponding to age of type integer. So here this is a file where you map all your database table columns with your Java bean attributes. Okay, so now that we know at a conceptual level what information we need to provide to Hibernate, now let's see what code we need to write to invoke Hibernate as a framework and allow Hibernate to use these configuration files which we have created and see how it generates SQL queries on its own. Now, at a very basic level, any database operation which you would like Hibernate to perform, there are a few basic steps which you have to go through. Okay, like you would have done while writing a plain JDBC code. What you would first need is a connection to the database. So that's similarly what Hibernate needs to. Hibernate provides something called a session factory. Okay, and a session factory is it's basically it's a thread safe session factory which Hibernate provides, and ideally it should be cached within your application, because creation of a session factory in itself is the most expensive part, where it reads all the configuration files and loads them in memory. So you wouldn't want to keep creating session factories whenever you want to perform a database operation. You would want the session factory to be cached within the application, either as a static member of some class, or if you're using Spring, then define it as a singleton and inject it wherever you need. So session factory would ideally be a singleton, associated with some singleton pattern somewhere. Catalog, yeah, someone asked what's the use of catalog. Catalog is the name of your schema. So in MySQL you can have in one database server you can configure multiple databases or database schemas. So that's the name of your schema. For 10 tables, do I need 10 mappings? Well, if you're going to use all those tables and you have corresponding Java objects, you would need to create 10 mapping files. But we'll come to that. There are ways around that also. We'll come to that towards the end of the session. How are foreign keys defined? I have not kept that as part of scope of this session, unfortunately, where we talk about master and child relationships. But whenever we come to that, foreign keys are basically defined as one-to-many and many-to-one relationships in the mapping files themselves. So you can specify that this particular property has is linked to this primary key of this so and so table. So there are provisions within the mapping file to be able to specify foreign key relationships. Okay, so you've created a session factory and you've cached it somewhere in your application. From the session factory, what you get are obviously sessions. So you can, sessions would be analogous to maybe your database connections. Okay, if you say so. What you would generally have is, if you are not using Hibernate, you would have a connection factory or a connection pool, and from a connection pool you would get a database connection and start executing statements on the database connections. Similarly, from a Hibernate session factory, you get a Hibernate session. So a Hibernate session, you can you can say that it's analogous to a database connection. Now there are certain there is an API which Hibernate provides called sessionFactory.getCurrentSession. Okay. Now this is where we come to that property which we had left out in the Hibernate config XML, which was called the session context class. Now let's take an example. Say you have a data access layer which needs to insert rows into two tables as part of a single transaction. Okay, so you have a screen maybe where you're entering multiple rows, and you need those rows to be inserted into two different tables and within a single transaction. What you would generally have to do in a data access layer is that take a connection, execute the first statement, and execute the second statement using the same connection. Only then you'd be able to have those two statements in a single transaction. Now the problem there is that you have to keep passing the connection object around there, right? So that you're sure that for this particular transaction the same connection object is used. Now Hibernate has provided a utility method called getCurrentSession. What Hibernate does is it will make sure that it gives you the session which is, if there is an active session already available in the defined context, it will return that session always. If there is no active session, it will give you a new session. Now the most important thing here is what is the meaning of the word context. Okay. Let's take a web application for example. When you talk about a web application, you generally create a session or a database, or you take a database connection from a pool for every request. So whenever a new HTTP request comes into your application, you generally take a connection from the pool, execute whatever statements you'd like to, and then return the connection back to the pool after committing your data. So similarly, what you would generally do in a web application is that for every HTTP request, you would generally use one session. So say somebody posts an order form, you would create an order Java bean, populate it with whatever data is coming from the screen, and give that to the data access layer to insert into the order table. And if it's supposed to insert into order as well as order item table, then you would make sure that it's part of a single transaction. So in such cases, instead of having to keep passing the connection object around or trying to define the connection object at the request level or stuff like that, what Hibernate provides you is a API which will make sure that it gives you an active session if it is already available. Now in the example which I just quoted, the context in our case is the request, the HTTP request. So because we wanted to have a single session for a HTTP request. Okay. So depending on what you've configured in the Hibernate configuration file, the session factory will return you an appropriate session. So if you've configured what we had configured, or which is generally be used in a web application, we have configured the class to be thread. So if you recall, the value of the session context class property was thread. Now when you say thread, it means that whenever you do a session factory.get current session, Hibernate will first check whether there is an active session available on that thread. So in a web application, every HTTP request is a new thread. So it will first check. It basically creates your session objects as thread local variables internally when you define it as thread. So if there is already an active session on that HTTP request thread, it will give you a reference to that same session. If there is no session available, only then it will create a new session. Right? So these were a bit of internals of Hibernate, but yeah, this is a standard step which you generally perform. This is how you get a session using session factory.current get current session. What you have to do next, once you have a session, you begin a transaction. Now you have to note that even though you want to execute a select statement, Hibernate requires all statements to be executed within a transaction boundary. So before executing any statement, it could be a save, it could be an update, it could be a select, anything, you need to begin a transaction, and at the end you need to commit or rollback a transaction. After beginning a transaction, you perform the required database operation, insert, update, delete, select, whatever, by invoking the relevant Hibernate APIs, which we'll obviously have a look at. So these are the basic steps you will have to follow to execute any database operation using the Hibernate framework. Just to summarize, using the session factory, get a session, using the session, start a transaction, and then perform the required database operation. Okay, so now this is the place when we start actually getting into code snippets of examples of inserts, updates, deletes, selects. So till now, so at a conceptual level, if you have any questions, maybe we can spend a couple of minutes and answer a couple of questions if you have any. Because this was understanding concepts was the crucial part of the session, and now we'll just have a look at a few code snippets. Yeah, current session class property. There are other values like JTA, Java Transaction API, and there is also another which I don't recollect, but I think yeah, Java Transaction API is another one of them. But there is a third one which I'm not recollecting at this moment of time. Okay, recommendation as to whether you should use annotations in code or use configuration files. It's again two different schools of thought, and that's a separate debate altogether, because it's not only in the context of Hibernate, but in context of any framework which you're using. Nowadays, all frameworks provide after JDK 1.5, everyone provides you options of configuration files as well as annotations. So I mean, that's a separate debate altogether. It won't be within the context of this current session. So if I want to give a quick answer, maybe if you think there are going to be a lot of changes in the configuration, I would rather have them in a configuration file where I don't have to recompile or change my source code and those kind of things. But yeah, it's open to debate, and I won't comment on that at this moment of time. Can I use Hibernate if my database is Sybase? I think even I'll have to Google that. So haven't used it with Sybase yet. Not sure if it works with Sybase, but I'm sure just if you can just copy this and paste it on Google, you might get the answer. Yeah, I think the session the session context class property is something which is causing some confusion. So let me try to again touch on it and see if I can give a better explanation on what it is. I'll again take an example of a web application. What you normally do in a web application, suppose you have a screen where user is submitting data, and you need to insert the data into two tables, an order table and an order details table. Okay. Now what you would normally do is you would get a connection to the database. If you're not using Hibernate, yeah, you would get a connection to the database, and you would execute both the insert statements in a single transaction. Okay, so that if one fails, the other also fails, etc. Now, in order to do this, what you will have to do is make sure. Now, suppose you had a different class which had code to insert into the order table, and a different class which inserted code into the details table. Now, in such a scenario, you would have to make sure that your connection object gets passed to the relevant methods, or the connection object is made available in some manner to both the methods, so that both the methods can use the same connection object. Now, in order to do that, you'll either have to keep passing the connection as part of the method signatures, or you have to make the connection available as a thread local variable, maybe at your HTTP request level. So this is the problem which Hibernate was trying to solve, and what it has done is given a method for you saying get current session. Now when you say get current session, and when you configure the session class as thread, Hibernate automatically makes the Hibernate session a thread local variable. So if from a context of a web application, for every request, it will ensure that there's only one session. Okay. Now, so that's the meaning. That's what happens when you say thread, and that would be ideal in case of web applications. There are other options, not only thread, but you can. There are two other. If somebody can just parallelly look it up on Google, you have the Java transaction API as the other option, and there is a third one which I don't recall right now. So in the current context, just to get started, I think we won't. Let's not waste too much time on that. But what I'm trying to do is build up a concept, and then there's lots of experimenting to be done anyways. Hibernate in itself is a huge framework. There are lots of features which you'll have to experiment. So let's get the concepts cleared first, and then then leave it to further sessions to take care of these minute details. Fine. Right. So now what we'll do now is get into code. As I said, the first step is we need to create a session factory, and the code to create a session factory is very straightforward. It's a standard piece of code which you'll be just copying and pasting. Nothing specific to your application, nothing specific to your business functionality. So the snippet which you see on your screen right now is basically the code needed to create a session factory. So there are 3 or 4 lines of code involved here, but finally what it does is it reads all your configuration files and loads all that in memory. That's what it does. Okay, so you would create a kind of a utility class where which would create a session factory, and you have to make sure that you're caching that session factory appropriately as a at an application level, right? So I don't think it's going to be worthwhile going through these 4 or 5 lines of code, because they're very basic, and these are the lines of code which Hibernate documentation says that this is the way you have to get a session factory. So basically what it's doing is reading all your configuration files and loading them in memory. Now let's get into the actual CRUD operations. So we'll look at create